Okay, this is the my energy costs for 2015. One thing to note is that I'm going to go through these bills rather quickly. So if this is the first time you've stumbled across this video, you can always go back and pause the video. There's a lot of information that I want to cover in this section. So basically, the gist of how you determine what you pay for air conditioning is that you take your high summer bill, whatever month that is. It may be July. Usually it's either going to be July or August. And you subtract it from your lowest energy bill. The idea behind that is that your lowest energy bill is likely not going to have any air conditioning runtime. Now, if you have pool pumps that run during the summer, so on and so forth, those are a little bit special characteristics. It can still be determined, but it's a little bit tricky math-wise. And for the purpose of the video, I don't get into that. If you live within my service area, I can get a good rough estimate of what it's costing you to run the AC, even if you have a pool pump or if you're on balanced billing, so on and so forth. I'm also going to try to string previous years of doing these videos. I'm going to try to string them together. So if you get lost or whatever, just keep watching the video, and through the previous years, your questions will likely get answered. So with that said, we're going to move on. First bill, January. It's a bill that we're not going to use. It's just a note, just reference, what we paid, what our average price is for electricity. And this is just basically just to show you, that I'm not trying to cheat anything. And I've had people years past say that what I post here is suspect. It's not. I've been doing this for years. It's fairly consistent year in and year out. So with that said, we'll go to February, $64.96. It's a bill that we're not going to use. It's just a bill to note. March is another bill that isn't going to be used. It's close. It's very, very close to being the low bill, but not quite. Next month would be the April time period. Again, another low bill, but not the lowest, as you'll see once we go through. This would be the May bill. It's another low bill, but not the lowest. So we keep cycling through here. Now you'll notice that this is one of the higher bills. It's really not really what I'd call high, but according to my records, it's high. Your bill may be completely different. So we note that bill because I will use June as an example, just to show you, what some of these other months, what I wound up paying is like ridiculously low. And another thing to note is 2015 was a very hot year. During this July time period, we had temperatures up around 100 degrees nearly every day. So that's why this bill is going to be used as the highest bill. Now, when you're looking at this, you're probably saying, oh yeah, he's using some other means to get that bill that low. No, I'm not. I have an 18 SEER air conditioning system. It was put in roughly in the 2007, 2008 time period. It's about 8.5 years old, 8.5, 9 years old. And I've been doing this for years. So, it is what it is. I'm not here to play games. I'm here to show you how to calculate it and to show you what I pay. Now, one thing to realize that I've noted in years past is that while I have a 3-ton 18 SEER air conditioner, I use specialized equipment. It's zoned. It is a zone system. And my biggest thing in how I cut my energy costs is that I've reduced waste. You got to realize, if you're in your house and you're running the air conditioner, 99% of the air conditioners out there are going to be either on or off. Everything is going to either two-staged or multi-staged air conditioning, and the reason for that is that there's probably maybe 3 or 4 hours a day to where your your energy or the load on the house is severe. So, you know, if your air conditioner is running, if it's an either on or off air conditioner, you're basically paying for a turbo mode on the air conditioner all the time. No matter, you know, if it's running, it's in turbo mode. Well, if you've got a 2-speed or multi-speed or variable speed air conditioner, it runs based on the load of the house. So you can save energy by doing that. Well, I've taken it a step further and basically put in what's called a zone system. Now, if you go to my website, www.austinairco.com, there's a plethora of information I have there on zone system, how it works. You know, you have to realize that you know, when you get into zoning, it's a specialized thing. And, you know, if you don't do it appropriately, your outcome will be nowhere near what I've achieved. So with that said, I'm going to move on here to the next. We've got August. Yeah, this would be August. Now you notice that my bill tapered off here. This would be the second highest bill, which is really still pretty low in my opinion. And then we go into September, lower still. We go into October. Now this winds up being my lowest bill. And so basically I take this bill and I subtract the highest bill, which was this bill, $76.37. And basically I wind up with a bill of, you'll see here, these are just other bills that I pay no attention to, December. And so this is previous year's comparison. You'll notice that 2015 is very comparable as far as cost goes in the years previous. You know, I kept these previous high and low bills from years past, and you'll notice that the average rate of what I pay fluctuates. You know, it doesn't stay the same. You know, the highest was 15 cents. Now, back in 2013, I was looking to try to get as low a cost as possible. So, you know, when 2014 comes along and I'm paying $30 some for air conditioning, my focus isn't completely on trying to see what the cheapest I can get it to go. You know, and 2015, the same thing. You know, I mean, it becomes more of an issue of being as comfortable as possible. And so, you know, you got to realize is that, you know, I'm running one zone in my house. The zone that I'm in my house is the zone that I run 24/7. And so, you know, and it's because, you know, sure, there's trade-offs. You can argue, oh, well, you know, you go into another side of your house and it's hot. Not really. You know, I would say the average temperature is probably somewhere around 80. You know, and some of those far zones are way over on the other side of the house, it can approach 85. But, you know, one thing you got to realize is you're running a zone, one zone at least, 24/7. You're going to get characteristics to where it's pulling humidity out of the home, so on and so forth. You know, there's, you know, really rarely ever that I would shut the system completely off. I'm always running it. About the only time I ever shut it off is if it's broken. Which brings me to another interesting point is that in October, the AC broke. So it was completely off. That's probably another reason why my October bill was so low, was because the AC broke down, and there was probably a few days to a week until I was able to get it back online. Now, another important thing that I want to note is that I made some changes to the equipment when it broke. My blower motor went out. Now that blower motor is what's called a variable speed DC motor. Cost-wise, it can range, depending on manufacturer, it can range anywhere from 3 to 4 times the cost of just a regular multi-tap motor. You know, and the difference is that, you know, you're going to pay more in energy for that multi-tap motor. Well, I decided because my previous records are so close, I wanted to show you what the difference is by going to this single multi-tap speed motor. Now basically I have it wired in to where it's running in one standard speed. It's not going to change speed. It's basically set up to where it's one speed only. I'm estimating maybe somewhere around 10. It might be as high as 20. I really don't know at this point. But it'll be an interesting test to show you what the difference is between a variable speed DC motor and to really determine if it's worth spending that extra money on a variable speed DC motor. The other thing is reliability. It's been about 8.5 years since I put the system in. And so I know that if I go back with a DC motor, about the best I'm going to get is probably 8 years. So, nothing is a given. There is no such thing as a brand that doesn't break. Back in the day when I put this system in, this was probably the best brand, considered the best brand. Well, it lasted 8.5 years until it broke. So, it is what it is. Air conditioning, there's no guarantee that it's going to stand up. It doesn't matter what manufacturer you use. This was basically a Trane American Standard type unit. They all break. So to put one in one class versus another, the biggest thing is that you've got to, in order to get these low energy bills, you have to go to the premium equipment. Well, you're going to use a major manufacturer in order to do it because the lower type equipment don't make the high SEER equipment. High SEER, like I've said, is only a part of it. In order to get these kind of savings, you have to put in the zone system and then you have to use it accordingly. If you run each zone, then obviously, your bill's going to be higher. The trade-off is that you're probably going to be more comfortable in those rooms because you're able to dictate what temperature you want it in those rooms. You just want to be careful because zoning is difficult. It's complex, and it can be very challenging to do it and do it right. Now, you'll notice that the SEER rate, my utility rate is 11.3. Now, how I figured that was I took my July, what I paid for electricity, my average cost that I paid, which was 10.9 cents kilowatt hour, my October rate, which was 11.6 cents per kilowatt hour, added the two together and divided by 2, it gives me a total of 11.25. I then rounded this up to 11.3. And I plugged this into the chart, and that's what tells me what I would pay for my air conditioning based on a 75-degree set point. My cooling hours, 2,200 hours for the Houston area. This is important because if you live in some other area within the United States, then your cooling costs can differ. We want to find $32.62, which was my cost for running my air conditioner in July. Now, if you go back and you subtract the two, you'll see that that $32.62 is right. So what we do is I'm going to shift this thing over. Now, if you notice up here, that's the SEER rating supposed with the costs of what I'm running. And so, because basically, your SEER rating is based on a bunch of numbers. It's based on how much you run the equipment, so on and so forth. So this basically gives you an idea of what my SEER rating, what my unit is running based on my own personal use. 3262 would put me somewhere in between a 39 and a 40 SEER. 32, because you basically, it's $1 between the two. Now, if I take the next highest, which was August, 6401 minus 4375, I got a total of 2026, and that puts me even further out. It basically puts me off the chart. Because basically $20 would probably be somewhere, it could be somewhere as high as 60 SEER. That concludes this session on how to calculate your air conditioning costs. For Austin Air Company, this is Ray Austin, signing off. Thank you.